The pastoralist people of the post-classical era. Although it seems as though nomadic people could not have a lasting effect on societies, the pastoralist people of the post-classical era in Central Asia made incredibly long-lasting and important changes in the social, economic, and political organization and development of Central Asia from 600 AD to 1500 AD. The pastoralist people were groups of people, mainly Turkish tribes and the Mongols, who originally lived nomadically and sustained themselves through farming and raising cattle. As time went on, small changes, like trading with the settled people, changed the way these groups and tribes worked in their clans and other societies. Ultimately, the pastoralist people created and spread new empires and cultures through conquest and development. Pastoralist people in the post-classical era affected the lives of all around them and left a lasting impact on the people around them through the spread of religion, their military organization and innovations, and the conduction of trade. The pastoralist people of Central Asia during the post-classical era were large promoters of the spread and development of religion. The Seljuk Turks proved to be a vital vehicle for the spread of Islam. By conquering and defeating the disliked Byzantine Empire in Anatolia, the Seljuk Turks were able to spread their power and their religion. Byzantine was a very predominantly Christian empire that gave a lot of power to the church. By levying taxes on the church, restricting its activities, and, on occasion, confiscating church property, the Seljuk Turks were able to take the power away from the Christian church. The religion of the Seljuk Turks, Islam, of course filled the newly developed void. The Turks persuaded conversion to Islam, as well as also adding and creating special perks for converted Muslims socially, economically, and politically. Another way Islam was spread was through the Ghaznavid Turks led by Mahmud of Ghazni. Originally, the Ghaznavids were focused on plundering and pillaging through wealthy sites in northern India. Gradually, they decided to place permanent rule over places like Punjab and Bengal, and ultimately the Turkish Sultanate of Delhi ruled over all of northern India, which, in turn, spread the realm of the Islamic religion. The Mongols, like many other nomadic groups, originally focused their religious beliefs around inanimate objects through the practice of shamanism. Yet, as their empire and interactions with new cultures grew, the elite class became enraptured in the practice of Lamaist Buddhism from Tibet. Lamaist Buddhism had a significant taste for magic and other supernatural powers, similar to their already known shamanism. Not only did the Mongols adopt Lamaist Buddhism for themselves, but the Lamaist school of Buddhism also adopted the Mongols. Lamaist leaders sanctioned the Mongols as the legitimate rulers and tried to draw the Mongols' backing through complementing and empowering the ruling class. The trade that occurred throughout the Mongol Empire acted as an incubator for religions to spread. Missionaries for the Lamaist school of Buddhism attracted activity from the Mongols, while Sufi missionaries promoted Islam to the Turkish people in Central Asia. The pastoralist people during the post-classical era were obviously very vital parts of the spread and development of religions that are still popular in those same regions today.
The pastoralist people's legacy lives on in their military organization and innovations. When nomads condensed into tribes, the clans were often formed under the control of a military leader, or a khan, a ruler. Tribes rarely united, but when they did, the combined peoples were a force to be reckoned with. Since the people lived their whole lives on the move, they learned to ride horses at a young age and became even more skilled as they grew up. Riders were proficient with weapons even from horseback, and units of cavalry were easily able to overwhelm and outmaneuver enemies. Through their military skills, the nomadic tribes were able to control settled societies who weren't able to respond to their superior tactics. An example of a clan who conquered a settled civilization are the Seljuk Turks. Like the Germanic people to the Roman Empire, the Seljuks lived on the edge of the Abbasid Persian Empire from the 8th to the 10th centuries. Many of the Turks served in the Abbasid armies and lived inside the empire, and eventually overwhelmed the caliphs. In 1055, the Seljuk leader Turgral Beg was named Sultan, and from then on, the Turks served as the real power of the Abbasid state. The Seljuks also took control of the Byzantine Empire, moving in large groups into the empire and launching an assault against the Byzantine army in Manzikert in 1071. The Turks took control of the empire and converted the political and social constructs, turning the previously Christian Anatolia into a Turkish Islamic state. Another group of Turks called the Ghaznavids originally set out to plunder, but when they became more interested in ruling, they asserted control over the Sultanate of Delhi. Mahmud of Ghazni was the leader of the Turkish Ghaznavids of Afghanistan and led raids on shrines, temples, and monasteries of Buddhism and Hinduism. When the Sultanate of Delhi was taken control of, northern India became mostly Islamic, leaving Buddhism and Hinduism only in the south, where the Turks had no control. Over in the east, the Mongols also started to take control of civilizations like China and capitalize on the open land in Central Asia. The Mongols were organized in military units without tribal connections, and leaders were chosen based on military talent and loyalty to Chinggis Khan, the unifier of the Mongols. Like the Turks, the Mongol army also possessed superior equestrian skills and were exceptional archers. Their armies were extremely mobile, and they used psychological techniques in their warfare. Their policies encouraged enemies to surrender, sparing their lives and offering them generous treatment. But if the opposing force continued to resist, whole populations were slaughtered, with only a few left to be used as human shields for future conflict. Mongol rule was extended to northern China, beating the Jurchen people who lived north of the Song dynasty. The empire was then broadened to the west, taking control of Persia in 1218, triumphing over a successor to the Seljuks named Khwarazm Shah, after the Shah killed Mongol envoys and merchants. Shah's state was then destroyed to prevent any locals from rebelling, and some Persian cities were never able to recover, unaided by agriculture since the Qanat irrigation system was devastated as well. After the death of Chinggis Khan, his empire split up into 4 parts, each of which took control of a region of Eurasia. Though split up, the Khanates all managed to take further control of their domains. The Song dynasty of China fell in 1276 when the Yuan dynasty was created, and ruled for nearly 100 years after. The Khanate of the Golden Horde took control of Russia between 1237 and 1241, before starting expeditions to Eastern Europe in 1241 and 1242. The Ilkhanate of Persia unseated the Abbasid Empire and established itself in 1258 after capturing Baghdad, executing the caliph, and killing over 200,000 residents. By tearing down empires and forming their own, the military skills and organization of the pastoralist peoples influenced all the civilizations around them.
The Central Asian pastoralists were often middlemen of trade and supported the trade in between Eastern Asia and more Western nations in Europe and Africa. As nomads began to settle down, they often formed into small tribes and caravans, especially the Turkish tribes. The Turks were nomads who followed seasons of growth to feed their animals and themselves. They began trading with each other and they could be more efficient traders as they moved and visited different areas of Asia throughout the whole year. Soon, they became proficient traders. Other pastoralists were very similar to the Turks, simply in different regions of the Asian continent. While the Turks tended to remain near Europe and northeastern Africa, others, like the Mongols and their many descendants of the original Mongols, expanded out from what is now Turkey to nearly all of Asia, excluding China and its smaller vassal states. This area of land was so large that it allowed the bubonic plague to travel along the trade routes and spread far across the eastern hemisphere. While this was not a positive aspect, it is caused by the pastoralist people's extensive trade. This plague went on to kill many, many people during that time period, and it was a direct effect of these traders. Since the pastoralists encompassed such a large area and connected Europe to East Asia, they became experienced traders and took advantage of their position. The Mongols encouraged trade and communication of ideas over their large empire and made efforts to ensure the safety of traders and couriers. They also ensured the safety of scholars they let travel from city to city, and by doing this got the smartest people of their time to share ideas and ended up with new ideas and technology. Chinggis Khan and his successors improved upon roads already in place to promote trade throughout the hemisphere. The Mongols allowed for trade and transportation to occur throughout their realm, but once they broke apart, all communication was lost between East and West Asia. This repercussion of total silence between Asia proves how vital and important the Mongols were for trade during their rise of power. Nomadic people have gone their whole lives without many of the pleasures that settled societies enjoy, like agriculture and large structures. Yet, these nomadic people still played a very large part in their society. Without agriculture, they were forced to trade with settled cities, and over time, as the nomadic bands' relations with the cities went sour, they started raiding the cities. The raidings turned into conquering, and the newly conquered societies would have very large effects on the surrounding areas. Although these new empires would not last very long, the effects of these empires and their pastoralist leaders would last for a very long time. The effects even reach modern society. Many cultures have religions in their area only because the Mongols, perhaps, spread it a very long time ago. Without some of these tradings the pastoralist bandings did, the world would be very different in some areas because the beliefs would perhaps be different, or new technologies not invented because the scholars were not moved by the Mongols to where they were most needed. The pastoralist people of the post-classical area contributed to the lives of the people and empires around them, and modern society in turn, through their spread of religion, their military tactics, and their use of trade.